thank you for sitting down. If you wouldn't mind, give me your name, your title, and your role.
My name is Eric Fuller. My title is Pepsi Marketing Director. My role is I'm in charge of integrated marketing communications for the Pepsi brand.
Congrats on the Effie.
Oh, thank you.
What does it winning an award like that mean to you?
Oh, it's been an amazing ride in the last 3 months when we first found out that we had won. At Pepsi, we really don't take a lot of time to look back and to celebrate the accomplishments, and I think everyone felt extremely good about the campaign, and we were very proud the night of the Super Bowl and seeing Beyonce on stage and having a intro to halftime that we developed, and then we quickly moved on. And I think once we received the news, it all came flooding back, and you think about all of the hard work and everything that went into it. At all levels of the organization and all disciplines. I mean, we actually had to secure rights for the 1,000 individual photos that were part of that intro, and that required signed affidavits that were notarized. And there are individuals within the team that actually had to go out and figure out ways in a time-crunched environment to get 1,000 people to sign affidavits. So I think what this meant for them is acknowledgement of their efforts. I think from the CMO, Simon Loudon, down to the lowest levels of employees, and everyone felt a sense of pride and accomplishment, and we felt it was, great acknowledgement of a huge effort.
So thinking about that team, that huge effort, how did the team come together? You got the Pepsi guys, the agency partners.
Yeah.
Who are they?
Yeah.
How did you guys work together?
The agency that worked in the campaign was Mechanism, and they're based out of New York and San Francisco. And we have about a 5-year relationship with them, and we really see them as brand storytellers. And I think they're right on trend with what's necessary for taking our brand to the next 5-10 years. And I think when we first started working with them, they had this idea that was delivered very clearly on the brief we laid out for them, which was about this amplification of millennials' voices. And they're very in tune with social media, and they know how that medium works, and have a strong connection with social influencers, and they really know how to get the message out through those channels. And so we really are pleased to be working with them, and we have done quite a lot of work with them. They actually did our 2014 intro to Super Bowl halftime show as well, which was also very successful. So Mechanism has been great partners of ours, and I think they are. I use the word partners because they do work with every employee on the Pepsi team, and we are, the way we're organized, the brand again sits at the center, but we have a very strong relationship with the sports marketing team. They have that relationship with the NFL. So everything we do has to be tested and not tested, but checked through the NFL and approved. So it wouldn't happen without these strong relationships that these teams build. And then our social media team, our PR team, that campaign generated over 5 billion media impressions, which when you think of 5 billion, it's quite a huge undertaking. And I think that's testament to their connections and how aggressive they were in getting the message out. Our media team was phenomenal. We had New York City takeovers with Beyonce prominently displayed when the ball dropped on New Year's Eve, and we got a huge bump in impressions because that was on ABC, live on ABC on New Year's Eve. So I think every discipline is working together to figure out the best way to drive this campaign, and that's why I think we'll be represented tonight by somebody from each one of those disciplines. So everyone's feeling really good about the accomplishment and the recognition.
So you won an Effie for welcoming Beyonce to the stage for the halftime show. Tell me a little bit about what went behind that idea.
It's interesting because it all came from an insight that was really targeted at the millennial consumer, and that they leverage social media to really amplify their voice. They do that so that they can really be part of something bigger. And we felt, what's bigger than the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl halftime show? You have the biggest sports franchise in the world. You have the biggest concert of the year. And we happen to have the biggest artist in the world with Beyonce that year. So it was an opportunity to allow our consumer to lend their voice. And we integrated thousands of photos of fans to create the first fan-sourced intro to the Super Bowl halftime show.
Were there any big challenges with executing on that campaign?
There were major challenges, mostly because we had three of the most powerful brands in the world. With NFL, you had Beyonce and you had Pepsi, and all very high standards of excellence, and all with similar but a little variation in their marketing goals. So we really had to be extremely collaborative, strong partners, work very closely together to figure out where we can integrate and where we can make this the best finished product for all involved. So I would say the biggest challenge is just working across those three big, massive properties. But it was a great partnership.
Was there any takeaways or learnings that you had as it related to that?
Yeah. I mean, we learned a great deal. It was a global deal with Beyonce that Pepsi had embarked on. So it was the first opportunity to actually leverage her, not only in the United States, but across the world. The one thing that we would have done differently, and we've integrated that learning into future campaigns, is to really have a media to shelf approach, which is basically every consumer touch point should be synergistic with the talent. In this case, Beyonce. And we did not do an outstanding job. While the consumer engagement was there, we didn't have a great retail program, and we just learned from that. And the following year, we came back with a strong retail program so that every single touch point with the consumer was very integrated.
Winning an Effie is about marketing effectiveness. Mm-hmm. How would you define marketing effectiveness?
It's interesting. We're just starting to embark down this integrated marketing model, and we define marketing effectiveness as really leveraging every element of the marketing mix to build really truly loved brands. We feel that will help drive long-term sustainability and volume growth. The key ingredient to that is really having a really talented marketing team across all those disciplines of the marketing mix. So having a strong digital partner internal to inside Pepsi, really having a strong PR team, strong media team, the strong brand team. It's about collaboration and working together in a synergistic way to make sure that every element of the marketing mix is synergistic. And we actually kind of see ourselves as storytellers, brand storytellers, and we feel that the more involved in the briefing process in the beginning of a new initiative that every individual is, the better the end product. So talented individuals and really having a collaborative approach are key.
Great. So let's transition a little bit to you. Mm-hmm. You've achieved a level of success in your career. Is there anything that fuels that? It fuels you personally?
I mean, I think of myself as a self-starter, self-motivated. I really am energized by seeing the results in the marketplace. So actually seeing what the consumer takeaway is. So that could be measured in any variety of ways. So whether it's, number of views, number of shares in digital media, is it, volumetrically or share. It's really about seeing that consumer response. But it doesn't hurt to really have a team of passionate and motivated individuals that really keep you at the top of your game. And we also compete in an extremely aggressive category, very competitive. And I think if we're not at the top of our game, our competitors are. So we're motivated by always keeping abreast of the latest trends and making sure that we're not falling behind when it comes to marketing effectively.
Do you have a personal motto or a quote?
I do. Tony Hsieh, actually, the CEO of Zappos, says your culture is your brand. And I feel that at Pepsi, that is something that we have a spirit for innovation. We have a spirit for fresh thinking, and we do have fun, but we drive for results. And I really feel that the end result of our marketing efforts manifests that motto manifests itself in the work that consumers ultimately end up seeing.
Okay. You're shepherding big brands. Do you have any tips for others that might fall into your shoes one day?
I actually heard a quote once from he's actually the CMO of Capital One, and it was at a seminar I attended, and it was he basically had an analogy for marketers, and he said there's a lot of marketers out there that are top of their game. They're enthusiastic, they're hardworking, they're motivated, but then he went so far as to say that they're actually sort of like retrievers. And what he said, there's a lot of retrievers out there, and there's not enough people throwing the stick. So I don't know if other people would appreciate that analogy, but it's always in the back of my mind that he said we need more visionaries, we need more people setting the strategy and throwing that stick, and then inspiring others to follow. So I like to think that at Pepsi we're given the opportunity and the tools needed to actually identify where to go, identify the trends, identify where that stick should be thrown, and then the team to actually chase after it. So I think that keeps me pretty much motivated thinking about that analogy.
I love that analogy, throwing the stick.
Throw the stick.
So stepping back from Pepsi is such an iconic, it's a great brand, but so let's put Pepsi to the side. But what other brands are you following or motivated by yourself?
Yeah. Well, on the Pepsi brand team, we actually have weekly meetings where we sit down. There's about 20 of us on the team, and we use that hour to really look at what's happening in the marketplace. And a lot of it's digitally focused, socially focused, so understanding what different age groups within our team find compelling, find appealing. And there's always the few that rise to the top: Chipotle, Geico, Budweiser, Taco Bell. I mean, they're really brand storytellers, and but the one that kind of sticks out is it's not a consumer packaged goods brand at all, but it's late night TV, and we look at what Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel and Saturday Night Live and what they're doing to really transform the way people engage with that media and that asset. And it's and I think because our focus is production and producing content and storytelling, I think that's a model that we pay close attention to.
Nice. What do you see as the most important marketing trend today?
I would say, and I think I've said it a couple of times as far as storytelling, but there is this emergence in a trend we're seeing in storytelling, brand storytelling. Really, consumers are interacting with multiple screens. They have obviously TV and digital, but it's not only just viral videos, either standalones or series of videos, but it's also social media from anything from Vines to Twitter to Facebook. And the brands that are effective and succeeding are the brands that are actually leveraging all those different tools to tell their story. So I think brand storytelling is something we're seeing a lot of. I think Super Bowl, the Beyonce example was our first attempt in that space of really having a fully integrated campaign that touched every consumer touch point. And I'm seeing more and more of that in the marketplace in this brand storytelling.
What do you think are the critical elements to telling that story?
I think it's really first having a truly defined articulation of what your brand proposition is, and then really driving that home in a synergistic way, during that specific period of time. So, to tell a story, it doesn't necessarily have to be a long narrative. It doesn't have to span over months or years. But I think if it's a campaign that's fully integrated, the key tool is to ensure that every touch point is consistent with that messaging. So clarity to the consumer is key.
Right. So you talked a lot of trends. How does that change the organization? And do you think the organization needs to evolve over the next, and not necessarily Pepsi, but organizations in general over the next 5 to 10 years? Yeah,
I definitely think, and Pepsi's a great example of a company that is undergoing some internal change in organizational structure. We are incorporating more of a global model. We're a 117-year-old brand, but we've always operated as separate business units. And for the first time, we're taking a very global look at our positioning and our design. And what that allows for is consistency across the world, but then allows each of the individual markets to activate the way they think is appropriate for their market to drive business results. So I think that's one way we've changed. We're also taking a very brand-centric approach. So I know that a lot of organizations are now wrestling with the emergence of digital and social media and what's the way to organize. We're very clear that the brand sits at the center, and digital and social is yet another medium in which to convey our message to consumers. So the brand is at the center, and all of the marketing disciplines sit around the brand.
are there new trends in research or things that you would like to see in consumer research that you don't have today or that you think is coming?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think we're becoming much more disciplined than we've ever had before as far as research. We're engaging the consumer earlier in the process than we ever have before. A lot of this is because we're getting ahead of our planning and we're not being as reactive as we were in years past. The one area that, so that's all very well defined as far as engaging the consumer. The area that we're still trying to figure out is how to measure the digital space in social media. And right now we're leaning on a lot of secondary research sources, which are tremendous. And one in particular is Unruly. We take a look at their shareable viral video report that comes out, and we always track ourselves on their top 25. But I think it's understanding what the measure of success is in that space and who's doing it well and how can we model ourselves after that. So I think that digital media and social media is the area that we have to focus a lot more attention on and from a research standpoint.
So we've talked about the Beyonce campaign. Tell me a little bit about Pepsi Max.
Yes, we've had an amazing level of success with that campaign. It's all grounded in this idea of zero calorie cola in disguise, and we've started off with the Uncle Drew with Kyrie Irving campaign, which had him disguised as an elderly spectator on a basketball court, and turns out he's slam dunking in the next couple of seconds, and took off amazing, over 40 million views, and we knew we were onto something. And then with these partnerships that we established with our athletes and celebrities, we leveraged our partnership with Jeff Gordon to do very similar zero calorie in disguise, which a couple of years ago, and that also went quickly up to over 40 million views. And but there was a lot of skepticism about whether or not the video was in fact real, whether Jeff Gordon was actually driving the car, and Jeff was very upset about that because there actually was times that he was not driving, but he wanted to. So he had asked the brand team, is there a way that I can prove, that that's me behind the wheel? And we set up this pretty elaborate activation, which one of the most skeptical individuals who had written and blogged and spoke pretty openly about it being a fake. We worked with his company and his manager and his best friend to stage this whole event where we arranged for a car service to pick him up and bring him to a meeting that he had to go to, and it was Jeff Gordon behind the wheel in disguise. And I mean, the video has taken off. If you've seen the amount of views on it, and we couldn't have been happier. Very nervous leading up to the shoot and after the fact, but couldn't be happier. And while we're extremely happy with the success of the video, and we think we're really onto something with that campaign, I think getting back to what we were talking about the media to shelf approach, we really want to make sure that when we have an activation like that, when we have strong content, that we are carrying it all the way to the retail environment. And I think that that's a model that we can improve upon throughout the company and throughout the brand. So
good. So some have hypothesized that this digital transformation is all encompassing, and that at some point in the future we'll just be all digital marketers. How do you feel about that?
It's a scary thought, I think. I think the Pepsi model, the one I talked about before, about the 5 to 10 year approach that we're taking to integrated marketing communications, it really is a brand-centric approach. So again, the brand is going to sit at the center, and we feel that that's the way for long-term growth. That doesn't mean that we don't have all of the disciplines supporting that brand. So digital, extremely important. More and more of our marketing mix is being devoted to social media and digital, but there's always going to be a need for a human touch point. I mean, our innovation is a key component of our marketing plan, and we have to make sure we're getting that product in consumers' hands, that we're sampling, that we're doing experiential marketing. So digital, I'm sure, will continue to grow, and as we figure out the best way to use that medium, we'll invest appropriately, but I don't think we'll ever fully go to a digital model.
Okay. So thinking about marketing mix, you talk about shifting to digital. How do you think about ROI today? Yeah. And there's so much pressure on short-term sales.
Yeah.
how do you tackle short term without forgetting that you're building a brand?
Yeah, no, it is a challenge, and we do measure our short term success, and all of the metrics that I mentioned before on our insights side is really working with the consumer earlier, understanding what they like and what they don't like, and then really putting our marketing dollars behind that content. So digitally, we feel consumer engagement is key. We can actually have a two-way dialogue with the consumer. We can engage them in the proposition and with the content. And we saw that with Max, Pepsi Max, where consumers were really heavily involved and had an opinion and provided a narrative and amplified their voice on social media. So we feel that, as far as marketing mix, that's the right way to integrate into the campaign and to communicate with that consumer. But there's still a need for TV, and that's still the most efficient way to reach the masses. And we've been investing more and more of our dollars into what we see as DVR-proof media. So if you think of the Super Bowl and the Beyonce campaign, I mean, we invest in the NFL and the Super Bowl halftime show. Because over 110 million people watch that show. It's one of the few shows they watch live. So we invest more and more of our marketing dollars into those types of programming. Grammys is another example. Right. But we are measuring short-term ROI. I mean, we've carefully analyzed the results of our past few Super Bowl activations, and we make decisions based on whether or not we achieve that success. But volume is a key component of that ROI, and we do want to see that immediate lift, right, also drive that long-term brand equity. So it is a delicate balance, and I think we're definitely getting better at it, measuring it at Pepsi.
Good. If you had to do it all over again, wipe the slate clean, and come back as somebody else, a different career maybe,
right,
what would it be?
I mean, it's hard to imagine a career outside of Pepsi. I mean, I've been there 8 years now, and I've had worked on a variety of different brands, and I think every brand experience is completely different. And the company is also evolving, as I mentioned, with the organizational structure. So I can't imagine a career not at Pepsi. I've also had the chance to work on and grow brands, billion-dollar brands like Brisk and Lipton Pure Leaf. I've had the opportunity to work with M&M on Brisk. I've worked with Beyonce and Bruno Mars. So if you look back and you think of the properties and the partnerships and the collaboration and the agency partners that we've worked with, it's hard to imagine not. And this is an exciting time to be in this field. I mean, there's so much going on with digital media and social media that I can't imagine being anywhere else.
So the only thing you would change is just more of the same.
Yeah, more of the same. Maybe if I got there earlier in my career, maybe if it was longer than the 8 years. But I think it's I'll take what I can get with that. But it's definitely a rewarding experience.
Well, thank you very much for sitting down with us.
Thank you, and I appreciate it.